and prudence. Help us today, Father, to richly drink from the well, the fountain, that we might overwell to be able to share it with others. Let others see Christ living in us, and let the light shine into the world. For we pray in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. Amen. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today's lesson is taken from Matthew chapter 25, verses 1 through 13. Janine, are you ready this morning? Okay, good. Once again, I'd like to set the context for the parable today because I think it helps us to see the wisdom of Christ, and it also helps us to make application for what he's trying to teach us. So in that light, the context is Jesus has gone up to Jerusalem. He and his disciples together. Jesus knows that he is going to be tried, found guilty, put to death, and buried. And it would seem that he is heavy with that thought, and so are his disciples. And yet Jesus knows that this is something that he must do. He's gone into the temple in Jerusalem, and he's been teaching daily, and the people have been thronging into the temple to hear him and to hear his words. Later in the day, Jesus leaves the temple, and he goes out to the Mount of Olives. His disciples ask him, Lord, what will be the signs of your return? And so he tells them many things that are going to come about. But then he finishes by saying, but the hour and the day knoweth no man but my Father. And he ends chapter 24 warning them of the evil servant who believes in his heart. Did you catch that? In his heart, he believes that his master will be delayed. And so instead of doing what the master has asked him to do in his absence, he's gone off and done the opposite. He's lived an unworthy life. He's been an unworthy servant, and he's entered into riotous living. And so when his master comes back, he tells the fate of the evil servant. And this is what he says. You will be cut asunder. Your portion will be given unto the hypocrites, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. And then in the final verse, verse 42, watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. That's how he ends chapter 24. And in that context, Jesus teaches them a parable. Janine?
At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both of us, can you? Instead, go to those who have oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others came. "Sir, sir," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "I tell you the truth, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour."
You do not know the day or the hour, as if answering from the context. So let's break it down. Janine, read verse 1 for us again, please.
At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom.
Is this a parable? Kingdom of heaven. Remember, Jesus has been teaching about the heavens. He's been teaching about the kingdom that will come. And he's astonishing people because they're thinking about a physical place with a fortress, with walls and a mighty army. And yet he's teaching them something totally, totally different. And he's teaching them with understanding, so much so that they marvel at his words. The scribes and the Pharisees, this isn't what we've been teaching. This isn't what we understand. And so what Jesus is telling them is the opposite of what they've been expecting. And in fact, they begin to accuse him. This is heresy, and you're leading these people away. And Jesus is revealing what the Lord's will is and how and what it shall look like. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven will be likened unto. And then he tells them it will be likened unto 10 virgins which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. Anybody ever been to a Jewish wedding that was practiced in the traditions of the time that Jesus walked the earth? Donato, your family, any connections there? Have you ever been to a Jewish wedding that celebrated with the lamps? Okay, and I haven't either, but we can still learn from the parable because the principles remain the same. First of all, I want you to take a look at a lamp. You're going to have to bear with Jack's artistry here. So there's our lamp. And our lamp is going to have a wick in it. And we're going to put oil in our lamp. The oil itself will not burn. You can try and light it with a match. It won't burn. You have to wick it up and warm it and bring the temperature up to the point where it will support combustion. Because the liquid doesn't burn, it's the vapors coming off from that liquid that burn. So if we put oil in our lamp, and then whoops, I should have put a top on our lamp here. If we put oil on our lamp, what's that, Janine? Now you recognize it, thank you. So we light our lamp.
The wick wouldn't come out of the handle, would it?
That's not a handle. It is not. Okay, thank you. Now does it going to look like a lamp to you, Wes? We'll put a handle on it. This is the pot of the lamp that actually holds the oil. It's not like a candle. It doesn't consume itself. It burns the oil. It wicks up through the wick until it's warm. It's being warmed the closer it gets to the flame. And by the time it gets to the top of the wick, it starts burning brightly. But it has to be trimmed. As the oil in the lamp starts going down, there's less and less liquid coming up on the wick to be burned, and the lamp starts burning down, and the flame is less. So if you want a bright lamp, you fill it with oil and you trim the wick. The wick is too high, it smolders and smokes. The wick is too short, it just barely glows. So you have to keep that lamp wick trimmed. Hence, in our lesson today, you're going to see about trimming the lamp. So, what hour was this wedding feast called? We don't know, do we? But we do know that it was in the evening hours because we need a lamp. So it's after sundown. And the lamps are going to be part of the ceremony. How many virgins were called? 10 virgins. And is there a significance to that number? Don't know. Doesn't matter. Because part of them on one hand and part of them on the other. So I don't see, to my study, a significance in the number 10, but roughly half on each side, if you will. Now think about the virgins themselves. Why were the virgins called? It's part of the ceremony. What does being a virgin signify? Purity, yes. And so these young virgins were called. Not everyone was called, but these 10 were called. They were honored. So think of them as the bridesmaids or the maid of honor. These were participants in the wedding ceremony itself.
To meet the bridegroom.
To meet the bridegroom. Right. Was the bridegroom there when the virgins arrived? No, he was not. But he wasn't expected to be. Part of the ceremony again, once again. The bridesmaids, or the virgins, if you will, bearing their lamps, are there ahead of the bridegroom to greet him when he does arrive. Do the virgins believe that the bridegroom is coming? Yes, of course. They're there in anticipation of it. They know, they believe, even though he's not here now, they believe he is coming. Any doubt in their minds? No. So the question, when will the bridegroom arrive? They don't know. They don't know. Janine, verse 2 through 4, please.
5 of them were foolish, 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps.
Oops, I should have put them on the other side. Okay, so that tells us something right there. Remember, in the style of the Proverbs, the foolish says in his heart, but the wise man saith. In Matthew's lessons this morning, the dichotomy and the difference between doing it this way or doing it that way, this is a takeoff on that. This is the same Jesus that's teaching now, and he says, the wise and the foolish. The foolish did this, but the wise did this. So how many virgins altogether? 10. How many of them were foolish? Half of them. How many of them were wise? Half of them. What did the wise do that the foolish did not do? Okay.
Extra oil.
Extra oil. Thank you, Wes. They took extra. They took extra oil because your lamp is only going to hold so much. It's probably formed out of clay, and the pot that actually holds the oil can only be so big. And so you take another flask of oil, or if you would, or a vessel of oil, so that when the lamp begins to burn down, you open the Janine's lid here, and you pour in some more oil. And the lamp continues to burn. Okay? Did any of them know when the bridegroom was going to arrive? So what did the wise do that the foolish did not? Yes, but to look at that in a little different light. Yes, they took oil, but they planned. They were prepared for the eventuality that the bridegroom might be delayed or he might come later than they had anticipated. But they planned and they prepared. They put a plan into action, if you will.
It must have been Girl Scouts.
Must have been Girl Scouts. Took extra batteries, right? Okay, prepared, yes. That's right, that's the Boy Scout motto, isn't it? Be prepared. Okay, Les, you're right. We like that. Verse 5, Janine.
The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep.
Okay, the bridegroom was a long time coming, and in King James says the bridegroom tarried. Why did the bridegroom tarry, or why was he a long time in coming? We don't know, do we? But could there be good reasons for that? For example, what if an important guest that was to be at the wedding had been delayed? Does the bridegroom want to come on time and the important guests not be involved, like maybe his mother-in-law, or... That was a joke. So he may have had to wait in order for those important guests to be there. His tuxedo might not have been done over at the dry cleaner shop. We don't know. The Uber driver was a little late getting. You don't know why, but he was late coming.
Jan
But
said
that's.
he had doubts.
I'm sorry.
Jan said he had doubts.
He had doubts. I'm not sure that's part of the parable, but I do understand. Okay. Important point here. Does it matter why the bridegroom was late? No, it does not. Was it up to the 10 virgins when he should get there? No. It's all beyond their, beyond their control. Yet it could very well be that the gentleman is going to be late. It's going to take him time to get there, so they need to be prepared. Yes, Wes?
Isn't that like us? Right now we're preparing.
Well, it is if you want to go to page 5 in my lesson, but not yet.
Oh, sorry.
Hold that thought.
Sorry.
Okay, so what happened to the virgins while they waited? They got tired and they literally fell asleep, or they slumbered. The point is, for those who were prepared, you're just marking time. For those who were unprepared, what was happening to their lamp? What's happening to everybody's lamp? It's going out. That bright, cheerful flame is now gone down into the lamp, and it's just a tiny glow. The lamps are not quite gone out yet, but they're running out of oil. Okay. Will the oil in the lamp last forever? No. Verse 6, Janine. 6 and 7, please.
At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps.
What time? Midnight. For us, midnight, right in the middle of the nighttime, if you will, and for the Jewish calendar as well, the Jewish clock as well, it's right in the middle of the night. It's midnight. The bridegroom comes. Why did they trim their lamps? Because no lamp left unattended is going to burn brightly. And what do we want to do to welcome the bridegroom when he comes? We want the lamps well trimmed and bright light to light up the ceremony. Can you see that if we don't trim and we don't tend the lamp, what's going to happen? You're going to have 5 feeble little flames here rather than 5 bright flames. Verse 8, Janine. 8 and 9, please.
The foolish one said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both of us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves."
So the bridegroom is coming, and the wise virgins have filled their lamps with oil. They've pulled their wick up. They've trimmed it to the right height. And there's a bright light and bright and cheery light given off by their lamps. Not so with the foolish. So, can the wise give to the foolish? There's not going to be enough oil, is there? If they don't put enough oil in their lamp, it's not going to continue to burn for the whole ceremony. Maybe initially everybody's lamp will be a little bit brighter, but you need a nice full lamp, in this style anyway, to give off that bright light for the ceremony. So, at this point, I want you to remind you of a different parable. There's a great gulf between them. Anybody remember which parable that came from? Lazarus and the rich man. You've got the foolish and you've got the wise. There's a gulf between them. The wise cannot give any longer unto the foolish. Is this the 11th hour? Another parable? Is this the 11th hour, Linda? No, it's past the 11th hour, isn't it? They slumbered into the night, and now it's too late. The Ace Hardware closes at 8. It is in a way, isn't it, Jan? It is. Verse 10, please, Janine.
But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut.
And so, in other words, they knew the bridegroom was coming. Someone rushed into the room and said, the bridegroom is coming. Get ready, make ready. And they do, and they get up, and they take the wrinkles out of their dress, and they trim their oil and put the oil in the lamp, or trim the lamp, put the oil in there that's nice and bright. And the bridegroom appears, and he comes in. And where are the other 5? They're buying oil. I don't know where you buy oil in Jerusalem at midnight, but it's probably not going to be very easy to do. But the point is, they're not ready. They're not found watching for the return of the bridegroom. Verse 11, please, Janine.
Later the others also came. Sir, sir, they said, open the door for us.
Yeah, and the King James says, Lord, Lord, open the door for us. Not once, but twice it says, Lord. It's a cry of desperation, if you will. Open the what? The door. There's a great gulf between them at this point. The door has been shut. I want you to imagine that the sergeant of arms, after everybody was ushered in, they closed the doors. That's all that's getting in. That's the point in time that those who are still on the outside, they're still on the outside. And the door cannot be opened. Thank you, Jan. Say it louder. The gnashing of the teeth. Those are on the outside of the door. They have been left out of the feast. The feast has been called. The guests have been invited. They were invited, but they didn't prepare. They didn't linger. They weren't found ready. How long will the door remain shut? Forever. Yep, until the feast is over. You can almost hear them calling, can't you, in today's terms? No, wait! You know us. We were called. Surely you can't mean that. What did he just tell them? I don't know you. Have we heard those very words before in one or more of the parables? Okay. Can anybody give me one of those? In that we did not do them unto the least of these, my brethren, you did not do it unto me. Depart from me, for I never knew you. The same words. What hour will the master return? No man knoweth the day or the hour, but be prepared, be wise, be listening for the call of the master. Trim your wick, Jan says. Will the sheep know the master's voice? Yes. All right. So, in application today, who is the bride of Christ? The church. Excellent. The church is the bride of Christ. And who did the virgins represent in the parable? The what? The pure in heart. Does that sound like a Christian whose sins have been forgiven, who've been washed in the blood of the Lamb, whose sins are as far as the east is from the west, for the Lord will not remember them? Does that sound pure to you? Who was called to the feast? Everybody that answered the call, or those that answered the call. The master put out the call, and those answered his call. Who's been called to the church? Was the gospel only to a select group of people? It was not only to the nation of Israel, but to all the others. For of the other nations as well, I will have one people. We will be of one people. The church. Those who answered the call. Now the scary part, everyone that's in the church, will they remain faithful unto death and receive the crown of life? Or will there be some who will turn away or fall from grace?
Sheep and the goats.
The sheep and the goats, Wes says. Sad, but it's not a one-time deal. It's committing your life to Christ. That's part of being ready. That's part of trimming your wick. That's part of planting and working and laboring in the vineyard to receive your denarii, your extra oil. Yes. Yes, Wes.
When these ladies refuse to share their oil, it seems selfish on the surface. But when we're saved, we can't give somebody else our salvation. They have to find it for themselves. They have to get their oil for themselves.
And if it weren't for the 5 virgins who trimmed their lamps and filled them with oil, will there be light for those others to come back to come into? Who will light the feast? Who will light the room of the wedding? The prepared. Those who have done what the Master's asked them to do. Not the lukewarm. The lukewarm, Jan, kind of people with just a feeble burning of the lamp. That's not what God wants us. He wants us to burn brightly. I want to highlight one more word for you. In verse 13, Janine, read 13 again for us.
Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour.
Keep what?
Watch.
So, keep watch. Keep watch. Watch is not falling asleep. Watch is awake. When the soldiers are in the field, they rotate. They're in your foxhole. You're at least two people in every foxhole, because one guy's got to stay awake to watch while the other tries to get some sleep. But the important thing is you've got to keep watch. In wartime, if you're found sleeping on watch, yeah, you may not wake up in the morning. There are many armies in the world that will simply put a pistol to your head and you're done. Now, America, they do it a little differently, but the point is, that's how significant it is. And so, keep watch. For no man knoweth the hour in which Jesus will return.
Actually, that's what these virgins are doing there. The prepared ones, when they're waiting for the bridegroom, they're watching.
Yes, that's exactly right. And here's another word I want you to pick up on. The bridegroom has said unto the wise, unto these folks over here, he used an important word. Enter. Come in unto the feast. Those who are watching, come in, enter in. Has there ever been another parable in which we've heard that same term, enter? What's he going to say to the sheep? Enter in, yes, enter into the sheepfold. How about the foolish? They want to enter. But there is a great gulf between where they are and where they now desire to be. Lord, send Lazarus, just dip his finger on and touch the end of my tongue. I can't do that. There's a gulf between us. Then send someone back to tell my brothers. No. They have the prophets and the word. And if they won't hear the prophets, neither will they hear one who returns to them from the dead. Was that a bell? Oh, that can't be. Okay.
What the parable about the narrow door is the same, one of the same language.
Did anybody take a picture of that lamp? Good. So I want to ask you, in the little time we have left, I want to ask you a question now. Thinking of all the parables that we've looked at so far, thinking of all of those parables that Jesus has been using to paint a picture with, what do you see in your picture now of heaven? Think of all the parables. Who's going to be in heaven?
The ones that are prepared.
I'm sorry?
The ones that are prepared.
Well, okay, prepared. So, what else? Faithful. Who else? Faithful. Pure. Who else? Forgiven. Given. The meek. Are you beginning to see the picture that Jesus is painting? What will be happening in heaven the day that you arrive? When a lost soul is found, what will we find in heaven? Rejoicing. Now get a different color. Rejoicing. And who's going to be rejoicing? I see. And what was that? Angels. One or two of them, right? The whole heavenly host. Those who have had their trespasses forgiven. You remember that part? So, if only those who have their trespasses forgiven, remember where that came from, the Lord's Prayer? For those of us who forgave our trespassers. So I don't know how we write that out, but forgiven means that we forgave, those who are there forgave the trespasses against us. Who laid up their treasures in heaven. Those who we expect to see in heaven have been laying up their treasures. There's going to be treasures in heavens, folks. And I don't know what that looks like, but He's gone to prepare a mansion for you. He's gone to prepare a room for you. I'm not seeing a dark little hovel in the bottom of a cave in the wall. I'm seeing a place prepared especially for those who have been called and who have answered the call, and who kept their lamps trimmed. So we're going to find lamp trimmers there. A bright place. How bright, Wes?
Well, there's going to be a lot of lamps.
Don't need any lamps because we're going to be in the presence of who? So who else are we going to see in heaven? Jesus. Thank you. Thank you. Jesus is going to be in heaven. Jesus, our brother. Remember that part? Jesus, our brother, is going to be in heaven, waiting for us.
The brightness of God is so bright that it would make our noontime day seem dark.
Probably will, Jan. We don't need a sun, do we? Or the moon or the stars. It's going to be so bright there in the presence of our Father. So, I'll talk real fast. Take this picture with you now. Jesus has been teaching using parables to show his disciples and those multitudes who have gathered the picture of heaven that he wants them to see. So take these thoughts, boy, that is a mess. Take these thoughts with you this week, lay them up in your heart, and let them show forth in the way that you walk, the things that you do, the things that you say. Let others see Christ living in us. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to lead us in prayer?
I'd love